On today's episode of A Special Treasure, I am going to revisit the idea of inclusion and strengths and focusing on the strengths of the student in order to provide the supports that they need to be included in inclusive environments and successful. My name is Dr. Tanika Travis, and I am an educational consultant and keynote speaker. When we focus on the strengths of students and the supports that are needed for them to be successful in an inclusive learning environment, we have to consider the fact that teachers must do different things in order to meet the needs of different students. When students with disabilities or students who receive special education services are included in those environments, many times teachers feel unprepared to face the needs of those students. Those students who have an IEP, an individualized education plan, receive accommodations. Those accommodations must be met by law. It is considered a free and appropriate public education when those accommodations are provided. That's why co-teachers are so important, and the skills and strategies of both teachers, because they must work together to meet the needs of all students, and they must work together to do different things in order to meet the needs of the students with disabilities. Now, the difficulties of a general education teacher in meeting the needs of students with disabilities is known. But when co-teachers support those teachers by giving them the strategies, by teaching them the IEP, the value of special education services, general education teachers benefit. Now, all of these things you may already know, but let's see if you know this. When you have students with disabilities, let's say, for example, in a reading class, those students receive accommodations in order to meet their needs. If they earn here in Florida a C or higher, they can have a meeting, or someone, the ESC teacher, the department chair, can call a meeting and call everyone to the table and provide documentation of whether that student has met the standards on a daily basis by working with someone in the classroom. That's why teachers are so valuable, because that student may struggle to pass that standardized test. Imagine taking the test again and again and again and being unable to pass it. The frustration, the failure that a student would feel. But with accommodations, that student is able to earn a waiver in order to say, hey, I can do this. I do it on a daily basis. I just can't pass the test. So, understanding what teenagers face, the reality of what they face in a classroom, and the need to focus on their strengths and foster resilience is so important, because students with disabilities may not self advocate. They may not speak up for themselves. They may be ashamed to say, hey, I need extra time with this. It takes me a little bit longer to process the information. They may not say, hey, I have difficulty with reading in social studies. Can I get a special education teacher to help me with the text? They may not say that. And then they face a totally different reality than most of their parents. Parents will say, I got mine, you got to get yours. Not realizing in today's classroom, if a student reads aloud, and stutters, that video could become viral. It could become footage that's used to humiliate that student. Imagine making a mistake in a classroom and you're a part of a group chat, and that mistake immediately becomes public to all of your friends, and they don't even realize that you can see it as well. It's important that we focus on strengths and provide the supports that students need, because there are so many dynamics impacting today's classroom, and we must create a trauma-sensitive classroom in order for all students to be successful. My name is Dr. Tanika Travis. I am an educational consultant and keynote speaker. Not only is it important to motivate young adults and teenagers and the teachers, but it's also important to have the experience to connect with them so that they can know that you understand the struggle and that you have the strategies. And if you don't have the strategies, you have the resilience to go out and find them.